at the end of the first 2 hours, Zim?
Yeah, Paul, we're still about a month away from the date where players can declare for the NFL draft, but a lot of names already trickling in, including several today. Let's go to the headlines. At Mississippi State, running back Kylan Hill, he announced today he will skip his senior season and enter the NFL draft. He's the SEC's rushing leader this season with 1,347 yards. He will play in the Music City Bowl against Louisville, and in doing so, he needs 45 rushing yards to set the school's all-time single-season record that held by Anthony Dixon. Meanwhile, College Station, just a little while ago, Texas A&M defensive tackle Justin Madubuike, he will skip his senior season and enter the NFL draft. Madubuike will skip the bowl game in the Texas Bowl against Oklahoma State. His college career is over. He's the Aggie sack leader this season. Mel Kiper has him as the fourth best draft-eligible defensive tackle. More player attrition, this time at Georgia. It does not involve the NFL draft, but the transfer portal. Outside linebacker Robert Beal entered the portal, according to reports. Beal was a highly touted member of Kirby Smart's 2017 class. Never able to really crack the lineup at Georgia. Played in just 5 games this season. And if he does transfer, he'd be the latest blue chip 5-star recruit to leave Georgia under Kirby Smart. Here is a list of some notable players. 3 5-star recruits have left Georgia, including very notably Justin Fields and Brenton Cox last season. Interestingly, Justin Fields is the only player on this list who is granted immediate eligibility by the NCAA. The rest of those players sat out last year. And finally, a new segment here called Where in the World is Lane Kiffin? All we have to do is check out his Twitter page today, tweeting a picture of Hale State. Yesterday, he was in Baton Rouge. Today, he just tweeting a picture of somewhere in Starkville. Paul, how much fun is the Lane Kiffin era so far?
Well, it's been pretty entertaining, and it hasn't even started yet.
It's just getting underway. I mean, what do you think he's doing in Starkville today? You think it involves recruiting? Is he grabbing some lunch? What do you think?
I think he's at Little Dewey's, grabbing some lunch.
Little Dewey's?
That would be my guess.
Yeah, I've been going with that too. Those are your headlines.
Welcome back. We are here for a couple more hours. It's been a really good show. We have the Navy coach on, and that was really exciting. Army Navy game is up Saturday in Philadelphia. Coach, not that one, but this one is in Fort Worth. Hello, Coach. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Hey. I coached high school ball for 30 years here in Texas, and we used to go to visit different colleges. Went to Auburn one spring, went to Ohio State one spring. You know, we would do that in place of going to a clinic and meet with the coaches, watch spring ball, watch film, ask questions, get ideas on different things. And a few years I've sat in meetings with the quarterbacks, because I coached quarterbacks and was offensive coordinator. And anyway, when Joe Burrow was at Ohio State, we were there in the spring before J.T. Barrett's senior season. So Joe was probably a sophomore. And really the point of my call is how kids change so much. And, you know, how kind of first impressions can be deceiving. But when we were there, you know, I think Joe Burrow has been a surprise to really everyone, how things have turned out to this point. You know, considering what he did at Ohio State, I don't think anybody could have ever predicted, you know, that he's going to win the Heisman Trophy. But when he was a freshman and a sophomore at Ohio State, I sat in meetings with the quarterback coach. Tim Beck was there at the time, and the other quarterbacks, and some of the coaches that were in there with me. We would have bet $1 million that he would have gone to LSU or against him going to LSU and being successful, period. I mean, it was unbelievable, you know, just because, I mean, he's a totally different cat now than he was when he was at Ohio State. And I think a lot of it had to do with, you know, he was behind J.T. Barrett. I don't think he had much hope of being the starter. and just didn't feel like he had much of a chance. Obviously his motivation's been totally different since he went to LSU. He's been given new life, and he has done a hell of a job with it. But it's just shocking to me to see him change so much.
Let me ask you, Coach,
and
as someone
mature.
as someone who has coached that position for a long time, how do you explain it?
I think Joe, he obviously always had the ability. I think it's a matter of confidence. I don't know. I think Coach O's personality and Urban Meyer's personality are probably 180 degrees in different directions. Just the way they handle players. I think that Urban Meyer loved J.T. Barrett, and that was obvious that to Joe. Joe, I don't think Joe felt like he had a chance. Whether he did or not, obviously, I think if he would have been the best quarterback at the time, then he would have been playing, obviously. But he, his attitude was not good. And then he came across as, pardon my French, he came across as being a dumbass.
Really?
Because his head was just, when I see him do interviews now and watch him, and how he presents himself and everything, he was a totally different kid.
You think that's
Totally
age
different
at
kid.
all, Coach?
Yes, definitely. I think it's definitely maturity, and but his motivation, obviously, I think like I said, I feel like he got new life, and just going to LSU and starting from scratch, and he fit the system. There are a lot of things that work for him. But like I said, I think the ability obviously was always there. But man, he has blossomed in the situation, or in the program, in the situation that he's in. But yeah, definitely it had to do with maturity. But I feel like, looking back, he didn't feel like he was going to play. He was just kind of killing time, putting in his time, waiting on JT to graduate, and then he didn't earn the job there.
Well, I think if I remember the story correctly, he broke his hand or something when he was competing with may have been with JT, but that certainly cost him. Hey, thank you very much for sharing that. John is up next in New York. Hello, John.
Hi, Mr. Finebaum. I was just curious, which result would say more about either program in the upcoming bowl game between Michigan and Alabama? Would Jim Harbaugh being able to topple Nick Saban, or would Nick Saban being able to win without Tua and Dylan Moses and probably a few guys who are going to sit out the game?
I don't see Nick Saban being affected very dramatically by winning this game. He nearly pulled off the win at Auburn, which is a much tougher team and a much tougher environment than New Year's Day in Orlando. I think this is really all about Jim Harbaugh, even though this is a devalued Alabama team for Harbaugh. It would be his signature win at Michigan, and I think he would feast on it quite a bit in the offseason.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Finebaum.
Thank you for calling. I do appreciate that. And can you imagine, Larry, if Jim Harbaugh beats Nick Saban in the Citrus Bowl?
Yeah, I couldn't wait to hear you trash Saban like you normally do. And Squirrel's right, man. We can't say nothing. You're all over us, man. You know you are.
So Larry, you're telling me that this show is, and me in particular, are censoring Alabama fans?
No, trashing. That's a difference.
Trashing Alabama fans.
Yeah, trashing.
Why would you possibly say that, or how could you possibly say that, Larry?
Come on, man. Just like LSU, Jack. You act like the worst thing. Hey, the first half we lose our quarterback, but you don't mention that as a reason.
Larry, we only talked about it for 3 weeks.
Look at Baylor. Look at Baylor. How good did they do without their quarterback?
Went to overtime in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah.
You guys didn't go to overtime because you had a missed kick.
Yeah, But the point is, we took LSU to the ropes. But you won't give nobody no credit. Just like me. You slam me, cut me off, short talk me. And you need to apologize right now.
Hey, Larry,
do
do you remember the score? Larry, do you remember the score at halftime of the Alabama LSU game?
No.
Yeah, well, I do. It was 33 to 13.
What was the ending score?
Well, the ending score was 46 to 41, but.
Oh, that's right. But did we lose our quarterback?
So we got a Bama now. A Bama fan now, bragging about only losing at home to LSU by 5 points when you were down by 20 in the game. Is that what you?
We lost our quarterback.
Well,
we lost
Larry,
our linebackers.
Larry,
everybody else brings it up.
Larry, are you the? Hey, Larry. Did Florida lose its quarterback? I'm not apologizing to you. Did Florida lose its quarterback? Did Kentucky lose two of its quarterbacks? Did Tennessee's quarterback get hurt? You're not the only team that lost a quarterback.
All you do is trash us. Bama fans make this show, brother. LSU fans don't. Bunch of Bayou Bing heads down there. What do they got? Nothing. When Buzzer's gone, it's going to be another swamp rat down there.
And who's your quarterback going to be?
Who's my quarterback? The best one in the nation. I guarantee you, ever who Saban puts behind center, brother, he going to be the man, Jack. And next year, this next coming year, we're going to kick some ass. We ain't playing around no more.
Larry, it seems like I heard that on January 9th after Clemson beat you by 28 with your starting quarterback.
Hey, check it out. That's old news.
No, it's really not old news because Alabama still hasn't beaten a ranked team since then.
Well, what about when we drug them up and down the field?
Who's that?
Their nose hole?
Who are you talking about?
How about we drug them up and down the field?
Who is them?
I don't say nothing about that.
Who are you talking about?
How about recruiting? How about recruiting right now, Paul?
What about it?
Looking? How are we looking?
Same as you always look.
Good. You damn right, Jack. Good. And I want to tell you something. You need to apologize to Squirrel and me, and hope we keep.
Hey, Larry, you know me. Larry, you know me pretty well. I'll apologize to anyone I'm wrong about. I'm not wrong about you, and I'm not wrong about Squirrel.
Oh,
you guys have turned into some sniveling, bitter Bama fans.
Woo! How about that, Baldy? What have you turned into?
I'm the same person I was when the year began.
Yeah, an a-hole. Roll down tide.
I'll tell you what, I didn't think this was going to be that much fun talking to Bama fans. I need to turn my Bama. I got my Bama tie on today. I don't know what else I need to do. We'll be right back on the Bama.
Respect for Lincoln Riley, and I have a lot of respect for those players on that team. And you know, when we lost that game, Paul, it was like someone puts their hand in your chest and rips your heart out. Don't I'll be gracious, but I can tell you that hurt, and it hurt our team, and it hurt our players. But I think it's my job as a coach to be classy at all times and to show our guys what it means to be a true competitor. And I grew up playing for Coach Paterno. I'm one of those guys. I grew up respecting the great coaches, the Vince Lombardis, the Bear Bryants. And they didn't engage in that stuff. They were classy. They were gentlemen coaches. And I think for me and the generation of coaches that are here now, we have to protect the game and we have to do things the right way. And so, congratulating them, I would have rather that they had to congratulate us, but congratulating them just seems like the right thing to do for the game and for young people. I was a Penn State fan, 1982 season. They went down and played Georgia and Herschel Walker and won that game and won the national championship. And, so much is made now. You hear, this kid's not playing in the bowl game, that kid's not playing in the bowl game. And everybody has their own story. I'm not here to judge anyone. But, there's 115 other guys on that team that are dying to get to that game. And I think for us, the chance to go out and, we talk so much about what you can get and can you get into the college football playoff? Can you win this? It's always about the tangible rewards. But this is a game that people say they love. And if you love to compete, what greater end to a season would there be than to go to the Sugar Bowl and play a team like Georgia? For me to have a chance to coach against Kirby Smart, if you're a competitor, you love that. You live for that. the guys that are absolutely definitely guaranteed to be in the top 10, top 15, I can certainly understand them saying, Coach, I'm nervous about playing this game. But I don't ever hear anyone saying, hey, we're going to sit out, the first game of the year against, Abilene Christians. What's the difference? It's the same game. And so, I understand it. If a player comes to me and says that, I would support them 100%. But there's a lot of other players that aren't going to be, first-round picks, that aren't top tier. And I think the hardest thing that I'm learning is I help these guys is they have so many people telling them, hey, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. And there's only so many spots. And so I think if you're guaranteed it, I understand it. But you know what? I think you're going to look back someday and you're going to remember the games that you played. You're not going to remember the games you didn't play in. And the money comes and goes, but really college football is your last time to ever really be on a true team and to go play with your boys. So I'll support guys no matter what, but I love when I see guys come out there and play that last game with their teammates in the bowl game. I think it's really special.
Welcome back. We are here, and let's get some more calls at 855-2427. 285. Greg is up next in Athens, Alabama. Hello, Greg.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. I caught the tail end of your conversation with a guy, David, that was really interesting. That was talking about, you were talking about the market in Birmingham and the rise of the SEC football contract and the difference in the networks. And it made me think about, this talk that's still ongoing about playoff expansion. And I know you're a student of history, and you have been back and forth on this at various times, as most of us have been. And looking at the 8 teams that would qualify this year under that scenario, it doesn't make the game any better. And so sometimes I think people who are in favor of expansion are confusing equality of outcome with equality of opportunity, because those are two very distinct, different things. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, if the desire is to make the sport better, then let's make the sport better. If the desire is to appeal to casual fans, it's not going to work. And, when, we're not college basketball, it's a different animal. And I know that people want other regions to be invested in the playoffs when the opportunity arises. But not everybody is equally invested in building a championship team as, say, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, and Clemson are. And so how can you expect an equal outcome when you're not investing equally?
Appreciate the call. Thank you, Greg. Always good to hear from you. John is in Memphis. Hello, John.
Good afternoon, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I'm this thing about the college playoff. It's not going to happen until the next contract comes up, and whoever ponies up all that money, which is going to be obscene, is going to probably insist that all the conferences are included. And there's an old saying, you can't legislate respect. It needs to be earned. And in football, it's earned on the field. And so I know they're going to probably go to 8 teams because whoever pays all this money is going to want maximum exposure. Is there any way that somebody could write a codicil that says, fine, but they got to be the best teams?
No. Listen, if you follow college athletics, you will know one thing, that if it expands, everyone will get a ticket into it, meaning every conference, all the Power 5 conferences will get a seat, the group of 5 will get a seat, and there'll be there'll be an at-large or two. That's the only way that all the conference commissioners will go along with it. And the reason for that is you can't if you're one of the 5 families of college football, like Larry Scott of the Pac-12, you can't miss it every year and be happy. So you'll see that division, that conference pushing it. The Big Ten has been left out a few times. They're in this year, so they won't be as eager, but that's where it's going to go. Thanks for the call. Do appreciate it. Eric is up next. Good afternoon, Eric. You're in Ohio. Thanks for being here.
Hi there, Paul. first time, long time. I think you do a great job.
Thank you.
I wish the Big Ten Network did as good of a job. I am a Buckeye fan, but trust me, I check out the SEC Network if I want to talk college football. It's just more entertaining.
Well, I mean, we try to position ourselves to do that, and I know what the knock is, that it's only SEC, but it's not only SEC. We had Matt Rule on yesterday. We've had the Navy coach on today. We'll have the Army coach later. I mean, we try to spread our wings a little bit, and hopefully we'll have some more coaches on as we get ready for the playoffs.
Well, I think most college football fans would rather talk to other teams' fans. I mean, who wants to just sit around and talk to each other about how great their team is? I mean, I'm not really on here to tell the South about the Buckeyes. I think everybody already knows.
Well, that's always been my complaint.
Like
yeah, about some of the conference networks, and I realize I work for one.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you have to be taken seriously, and when there are things to talk. That was one of the templates for this network. We're not going to be the investigative wing looking into dirt, but we are going to comment when things go wrong.
Well, I think you found a winning formula, because right now somehow you have half the Alabama fans thinking you were their biggest cheerleader and the other half thinking you hate them. And you could probably say the same thing about Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, and Utah, definitely.
Hey, Eric, thank you very much. I hate to run, but we have a guest waiting, and a very important guest, Jeff Monken, who is the head coach up at West Point. He's had quite a run lately against Navy. We had the Navy coach on earlier. Coach Monken, thank you. I know it's a busy time, but I think everyone in this country cannot wait for Saturday. And what's it like getting ready, especially with such a long lead time between the last game and Saturday? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, and I'm thrilled to be on the show with you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's what a game! There's nothing like it, and we're excited to be able to be a part of America's game. And this rivalry is like nothing I've ever been a part of, Paul. And I'm glad we got the extra time. This in fact, we've had 2 weeks since we played the last time, and typically we have 3. I mean, it is like a Super Bowl, and with the advantages that's been for us, we've been able to get healthy. And when you play a long season and you get guys nicked and dinged up, oftentimes you get to the end of the season and you're not looking at the same roster. And we've been able to get healthy in years past. I wouldn't exactly call us the healthiest team right now, but we're excited to be here and ready to go for Saturday.
And you've had such a great run, especially in this game, and winning 10, 11 games. And this year, has the health of the team been the biggest issue for you?
It's been an issue, and I try not to make a big deal of it. It turns into excuses. And the fact of the matter is, we haven't played as well as we're capable of playing. And for us to win here, it's really hard to win a college football game. But for us to win a game, we've got to play really, really well. And we haven't played as well as I hoped we would, and probably were capable of all the time this year.
I am really interested because my dad was in the Army. Everybody's got a personal story. It's the first game I remember watching as a little kid. But what's your first encounter with this game? I mean, you've been a lot of places in college football, but what was it like to be introduced not only to West Point and everything that goes with that, but to finally get to this game as a head coach?
Well, I had been an assistant for Paul Johnson for several years, and part of that tenure was at the Naval Academy as an assistant. So I took part in 6 of these games as an assistant coach, and I remember the thrill and just the energy and electricity in the stadium when we played those games. And then I was gone. I was gone as an assistant at Georgia Tech with Paul and the head coach at Georgia Southern for 4 years, and then was fortunate enough to come back here to Army. And when I walked in the stadium again in 2014, the first game back, I guess, to the game, somebody was walking out onto the field with me from the tunnel, and I said, "Gosh, I forgot what this felt like." and it is truly a different feeling, and electricity that you can feel it in the air. And to be the head coach at Army and to have that responsibility of leading a team into this game is incredible, because it goes way beyond our locker room. It's more than just our players and our school. It's over 1 million men and women who serve in the United States Army and their families and all that we represent. So an incredible honor and privilege, and every year it never gets old. It's just a fantastic feeling.
We talked to Coach Ken at Navy, and you gentlemen certainly have worked together before. And he said you're friends, but he said I also, and I'm quoting now, want to beat the crap out of his team. I'm sure that does not offend you. That you want to do the same, don't you?
Not at all. The feeling's mutual, and Kenny and I are great friends, and nothing will change that. We've worked together a couple of different places, and have known each other our entire careers. We were graduate assistants together at the University of Hawaii, and just have been great lifetime friends. But we want to beat each other's pants off, and that goes for this Saturday as well. And I know that, he knows that. We have tremendous amount of respect for each other and admiration and love and friendship. So it's really it's an interesting dynamic to go out there and embrace my friend at the 50-yard line before the game, and then go to war with him.
When the streak finally ended a couple of years ago, I know it's been talked about and it's been part of your portfolio, but what was that like?
Oh, I think, Paul, I came to Army with this incredible sense of responsibility to end the streak. Interestingly enough, I was on Paul Johnson's staff at Navy when the streak started. So I really felt that it was my duty to somehow find a way to end the streak. And I didn't do it. Our players did it. And it was just a raw determination in our program to get that done, to find our way to victory in this game. And when they did, I can tell you there was just an absolute jubilation all around the United States Army, certainly on our campus and in our locker room, and it's a great sense of accomplishment, and I think just a relief and a feeling of a weight being lifted off of everybody's shoulders. And though our 2016 team wasn't responsible for the 14 years prior, you still have that feeling, and you feel that sense of responsibility. So great sense of accomplishment and source of pride for us, and I'm glad it ended, and it's been a lot of fun to start our own streak, but they're only good for 1 year, and Saturday it goes right back on the line, and we're going to do our best to keep it going.
Of course, the president will be there, and he's been at this game before, and your team, of course, with the Commander and Chief Trophy have gone to visit him. But I'm really interested just throughout the year when you have the occasion to run into officers, generals, you name it. What's it like when you encounter them, especially after a win?
Everybody is excited when you win the Army Navy game, and they are quick to congratulate, and that's nice because they're recognizing the accomplishments of our players, and it's great to know that there is such a connection between our team and our men and women who serve. And though a lot of our folks that are in the Army have their home state teams or the teams that they grew up following and likely still follow them, so many of them attach themselves to the Army team because of its connection to that branch of service. And I think there is a sense of pride there every time we play, and when we win that they've got some bragging rights, and certainly no more in this game than any other.
Coach, I know you got a lot to do, but we can't thank you enough for dropping by this close to the game. All the very best on Saturday.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's an incredible game, and every college football fan, every American should take this one in. It's the only game in college football where everybody playing in the game is willing to put their life on the line for everybody watching, and that makes it pretty special.
It's incredible. Coach Jeff Monken from Army. We'll talk to you hopefully very soon. Thanks for being here, Coach.
Thanks, Paul. Beat Navy.
You got it. Great to have you. I mean, it's amazing just listening to Coach, both coaches talk about the this extraordinary game. We'll take a break. More to come right here on a Thursday night. Talk about winning with style. What about Army? Defeated Navy last year, 17-10. Third straight over the midshipmen. Army will be looking to make it 4 in a row, something the Black Knights have not done since 92 to 96. That would be quite an accomplishment. So, guys, it's hard not to be inspired by what you hear from both gentlemen. I mentioned briefly as a kid, first game I remember, my dad served in the Army, and that's the first game I ever watched, college football game I remember watching. Really? And I've cheered for Army ever since, even though I have a nephew who's an officer in the Navy and a graduate of Annapolis. So it's a little bit conflicting at my house.
Yeah, sounds it a little bit. I mean, Paul, you talked to both coaches there. You can tell the intense rivalry, which is great. You know, yeah. Coach Niumatalolo saying we want to kick the crap out of them. And you know, Coach Munkin coming back. Words, he's saying he's right. We do. I mean, this is the biggest game on their schedule year in and year out. But, I mean, Paul, you talked to both of them. So you're in a locker room. Who do you think has the edge after talking to both of them right now?
I don't know. I know Munkin's really well thought of. I've heard his name associated with a couple of jobs. But Coach Ken, man, it's hard not to love that guy. I mean, he's just so cool.
Yeah. And it was a great question you asked him. We hadn't really responded to it about kind of coming from Hawaii and the island players that have come over stateside and the impact they've made on college football. I know he's very proud of all the players that have come over there. It's very cool to kind of get that different side, because I don't think we hear from Navy players or coaches or Army players or coaches enough to how their schedule and their regiment they go through on a daily basis.
I spent some time about 10 years ago with a young man in Birmingham who had been the starting quarterback at the academy. And he came up one day and we spent about an hour together, and it was just fascinating to listen to the stories of, like you've heard them, but of what they go through and the pride about, they had been on, he was part of the streak. And just going to the White House, having the president, I think, speaks every other year, every third year to one of the academies, and just the joy of all that. Welcome back, John Talty, who is not playing in the Army-Navy game, but certainly we want to talk to him about all the news that is swirling around since the Lane train showed up in Oxford. John Talty, one of the editors at AL.com, and certainly one of our favorite guests. John, thank you for being here. It's been, I'm guessing it's been moderately quiet in Alabama since we've last talked. What is the buzz about playing Jim Harbaugh in this bowl game?
I think it's one of the few matchups that actually can excite some people. You look at some of the early projections for where Alabama could play, playing Memphis now without Mike Norvell, and some of these other games I don't think anybody would really care about. But with Harbaugh, somebody who has, to be honest, has trolled the SEC, has trolled Saban, had that full kind of barnstorming tour through Alabama during all those camps, I think it's somebody that Alabama fans know and, let's be honest, probably dislike. And so I think it's one of the few, marquee names of Harbaugh, Michigan, everything that comes with it, that for a bowl game that in general Alabama fans won't care about, gives at least some sort of level of excitement and some level of intrigue that it is against Harbaugh, a guy who has poked at Saban and poked at other people in the state in the past couple of years.
Listen, Nick Saban beats Jim Harbaugh. I doubt it's going to change his plaque when it's all said and done. But what if, John? What if Jim Harbaugh finally gets a big win and it's against Nick Saban and Alabama?
Well, I think it would be really big for Harbaugh because, as I think you've pointed out in the past, he has struggled in these big games. And not that this is at the same level as, a game against Ohio State or some of the other teams that he's really struggled with at Michigan. But I think it would certainly be a feather in his cap. Now, you know as well as I do that if Alabama loses this game, people will just point to, especially in this state, we'll just point to the fact that Alabama didn't really care about that game, and that because they didn't make the playoffs, you had kind of your classic letdown game. We've seen that in the past when they've lost to Oklahoma and lost to Utah in these non-championship games, that Alabama doesn't always come to their best, and fans just kind of almost don't care that they lose because it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things for them anyway.
John, what do you hear in relation to who will play in this game for the Crimson Tide? I mean, because they have so many players that could go in the first 2 or 3 rounds.
Yeah, I think it's a fluid thing. We've something that we've certainly been talking to people about, and I think, again, noting that it's fluid and things can change, I think as of right now, you'll see more players play in that game than maybe people initially expected. Obviously, we know Tua's not playing in that game. But I think a lot of the players that maybe you would have thought, some of these guys who are projected in the first round that you would think would not play in that game, I think as of right now will play in that game. And so, there's certainly optimism, I would say, around the Alabama program that they're going to have a lot more guys play in that game than initially expected, guys who are still hanging around the building, still going through different workouts and things like that if they knew they weren't playing in the game, they might have already stopped doing. So, when they lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, the initial expectation is that, wow, a lot of these guys probably aren't going to play in the bowl game because nobody's going to care. But as time has gone on, I think we're seeing more and more guys at least indicate they're open, if not willing, to play in that game. So I think we won't know for sure, at least for probably another week or two, but at least seems like some of those big names that are projected, in the first round by Mel Kiper and all those guys will actually play in this game, even though maybe they don't have to based on their draft stock.
John Talty with us. John, let's get to the biggest story this week in the SEC, and that's Lane Kiffin going to Ole Miss. Everyone has a theory about what this is going to be, especially with Lane Kiffin trying to cherry pick some coaches from the Alabama tree, but most important, how big a rivalry will this be between Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, I think it is going to be a big thing. I would say I would push back a little bit on some of the narratives in that, Lane Kiffin spent time at Alabama. He knows some of the people at Alabama still, obviously. And so it's only natural, I think, to want to hire people that you know. And so if Kiffin's interested in hiring some different people away from Alabama, I find that to be a natural thing. I don't necessarily view that as born out of, anger or something like that. I think it's you try to hire the people that you know that are best, and there's some natural ties there. I do think it's going to be a rivalry. I think I saw you at one point say that, he could lose 11 games, but as long as he beats Alabama, that could be the thing. And I definitely think he's going to devote a lot of energy to trying to beat Alabama. As everybody knows, none of Nick Saban's proteges have been able to knock him off yet. Kirby Smart has come very close, but a lot of them haven't. And I think that Kiffin will devote a lot of energy to trying to find a way to beat Saban. And I think he is one of the best equipped to doing that. And it's going to start with recruiting at a high level and hiring the right people. And so that's kind of what he's figuring out right now. And that includes potentially some people that have Alabama ties.
John, has Nick Saban had anything to say yet? I know he's recruiting, and that will end soon, but has he had anything to say about Lane Kiffin other than the perfunctory Nick Saban ease?
No, but I'm sure the next time that Nick Saban talks, he will certainly be asked about it. And I don't think he'll say anything of note there. But I do think if you've seen the HBO documentary from Belichick, I think some of the things that he said about, guys wanting to come in, kind of learning the ways and then leave and take a bunch of his people with him, it's probably a good inside look as to how he would feel about Lane trying to pluck away people either that currently work there or have ties to Alabama. So, Nick, as you well know, is not going to say anything too inflammatory. He knows how to play the game. But, behind the scenes, does he love Lane Kiffin back in the SEC? I doubt that.
Yeah, no. And, listen, everyone has a theory on that relationship. Quite frankly, you don't have to do too much theorizing. Lane Kiffin will be happy to tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, it's like anything. You want to knock off the top dog, and Saban is still that guy. Kirby's doing a great job, and Ed Ogeron's on the way up in the SEC too. But Saban is still that guy, and not only do you have that, but he worked for him. He received some tongue lashings from Saban, as everybody well knows, and then you have the very public embarrassment, even if they try to spin it a certain way, essentially telling him, we don't need your services anymore, even though we're about to play in a national championship game. That would bruise anyone's ego. And certainly, Lane didn't forget that happened. And so he's going to use all of those different things to motivate him, when they play Alabama. And no one has poked at the bear being Saban more than Kiffin has. He's done it a lot on Twitter, and he's going to continue to do that every opportunity that he gets.
John Talty, always great to have him with us to digest some of the most important issues going on in Alabama and the SEC. John, thank you. Always great to talk to you. Talk to you very soon.
Thanks so much, Paul. Appreciate it.
Good stuff from John Talty, and we will be right back. We can talk about that or anything else as you